Today's episode of Doc and Jock is brought to you by Score, a new mobile app coming to you this August. Score is an interactive game that lets users win deals at bars and restaurants based on what's going on in live sporting events. Find new places to watch games and save money on your bill at the same time by taking advantage of Score's unique interactive specials that give you additional stakes in the action. A Score special can be anything a location wants it to be, from 10% off an item if a team scores a touchdown to a free round of drinks if a quarterback throws for 400 yards. Any stat can be turned into a game. Pick the deals you want to win, watch the games you want to watch, and score deals in real time. The app will update when your team or players record relevant stats. When the conditions of your deal are met, the coupons are sent to your device to show your server or bartender. It's that easy. Score is coming to the App Store and Google Play this August. For more information, check them out on the web at score-app.io and follow them on Twitter and Instagram at ScoreDeals. Score, watch games, score deals.
Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Thank you for downloading another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You're listening to Doc and Jock. To start the show today, I want to kick it over to my cousin. First and foremost, always good to see you. You know, in times like this, I know what you're going to talk about is a little bit sad, but it gives us a chance to always say, look, you know, you're my family, you're my cousin, it's always good to see you. And I always enjoy doing this podcast with you, probably more than you know. Every Wednesday, I look forward to it, and I'm going to give you the floor. And I'm sorry you have to deliver this news, but it's much needed, and I know you'll get a lot out of it.
I know I don't tell you enough, but I do love you. I know normally I'll only tell you that stuff when it's Christmas or a birthday or some type of holiday, but I do love you. So recently, my family and my friends were affected by a huge loss when one of our buddies passed away late Sunday evening, I apologize. I want to take this time to dedicate this show to Dave Yance and his family, all of his friends. I'd also like to speak to each of you out there. If for some reason you've got a friend, a family member, an acquaintance, or you suspect something might be wrong with somebody, anybody, try to reach out to them. Try to grab them, hold them close, try to help them any way you can, try to get them help, whatever it is that you can do. Just try to reach out to them and be there for them. If you have a friend or a family member, don't be afraid to tell them how much you love them. Like I just told John, like I said, something me and him don't usually do to each other very often. We always hug each other when we leave the studio, but I don't think I tell them I love them enough. So let them know how much you appreciate them. Life's super fragile. It's super short. Don't take it for granted. Hold it. Cherish it. Love it. Love the people in your inner circle. Invite new people into your inner circle. Make it more collective. Make it different. Make it more fun. I'd like to give out a few numbers here that might help you, maybe help a friend. It could be the difference of saving a life. You never know. If for some reason you're having trouble getting through the day or you've got issues with anything, most of these numbers I'm going to give you are anonymous, so don't be afraid to use them if for some reason you have to. Text messaging is a huge popular thing right now, and most people communicate through text. So there's a crisis text line. If you text CONNECT, CONNECT, to 741-741, it'll put you in contact with somebody who might be able to assist you. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline number, it's 1-800-273-8255. Again, 1-800-273-8255. Also, the website for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is afsp.org. 24/7, 365 crisis hotline number, 775-784-8090. Again, 775-784-8090. And if you need to check in with maybe a grief counselor or somebody, just somebody there to talk to, you can check out a site like betterhelp.com. You just Google search pretty much anything and everything.
And stories like what you're sharing with me regarding your close friend hit home to me. as a mental health professional, anybody at all dealing with mental health, I think the biggest thing that I deal with is the stigma of mental health, in that people avoid going to talk to a professional because of what they may perceive is going to happen, or the perceived notion that it's a weakness to come talk to a professional. If you're within listening ear of this podcast on the East Side, you can message me anytime, either through our platform at Detroit Podcast. You can send Adam an email if you follow him. Listen, it's not all about the money. If you need any kind of counsel or a direction of where to go, many people will say I'm a better psychologist than I am a podcaster. So I'm here to give counsel and at least information if that's all you need as well. So you don't have to, if you can't, for whatever reason, come weekly to invest in therapy. We can give you information, anything at all needed to promote mental health. And I think when you hear stories about people dealing with mental health and when things don't go exactly correctly or when things escalate, sometimes you just need to hear, listen, go talk to someone. There are people here that have dedicated their lives to help people. And if you listen to this podcast and you need mental health services, definitely reach out. Adam, myself, will get you the help that you need and direct you in a way that will at least try to alleviate whatever's going on. So hearing stuff like this definitely hits home to me as well, not knowing your friend personally, but whenever these kind of things are brought up, it hits home because mental health services are there and significant events can be avoided, or you can learn about yourself through mental health. So that's my piece.
Yeah, don't be afraid to sit there and reach out to people. I mean, prime example, I'm a person who sat there and went through a little bit of counseling. I had bad anger issues, and I would always be in a fight with somebody about something stupid, and a lot of times I was really difficult to talk to. John knows, he sees it firsthand every single week that we do this, but it was even worse. And, a few things here, a few tweaks there, here and there, and you just kind of, sometimes you just talk about whatever's going on in your life, whatever's going on in your head. It just helps you get it out, helps you sort through your problems. My wife was good enough to, with the family's blessing, to go ahead and start a GoFundMe account. And all the proceeds from this GoFundMe account in Dave's name will go towards a charity that the family selects for mental health and mental awareness. So if you'd be willing enough and you're good enough to and you want to, you can sit there and you can support that at GoFundMe.com/5PPHW-RIP-Dave, DAVE-YONTZ. So feel free to check that out, and we'll be honored if you give something. It could be as little as 5 cents. It could be as much as $5. It doesn't matter.
And the good thing is, from what I saw, you rallied around with the crew, you got together and probably shared memories and things like that. And that's what you got to do. You honor someone's memory. They're no longer here physically, but you can keep their memory alive by sharing the memories and things like that. I know that I'm sure it helped you out to be surrounded by your friends to really recap the life of one of your boys.
Yeah, the toughest road's yet to go. We've got the funeral coming up here, and then the next couple of Sundays, because we always hung out on Sundays. It was our hockey day. After hockey, we'd always hang out, have a couple drinks, and just kind of sit there and just be guys. You know how guys are, man. You just sit around and you go back and forth, making jokes with each other, laughing about different things. Hot chick walks in the bar. You sit there, everybody points her out, and the whole table has to turn and stare. So it wasn't like she knew that you were talking about her, So those things, those are going to definitely be missed. So the next couple of days will be incredibly difficult here.
Well, I know it's going to be a difficult time, and I hope that, recording this podcast and spending some time with your friends, celebrating the life of your friend will help you through this tough time. But for the purposes of this podcast, I know it's tough to transition, but we got a lot to talk about regarding Detroit sports. The trade deadline hit for the Tigers. Lions training camp started. We'll end this podcast with the DocNJock Pro-Wrestling Report. A lot of strong emotions and strong thoughts that we have regarding a lot of different things going on. But it's really nice to honor your friend Dave, and we'll dedicate this episode of Doc and Jock to the late memory of your friend Dave.
And just a quick programming note, because of everything that's going on this week with everything, DR2M is going to take a break this week. Jay and Dave grew up together since they were kids. I've known Dave for 5-6 years now, and he became a major part of my life. So I can only imagine what Jay's going through. He's really no condition to talk, and with the funeral and getting everything ready and getting all that stuff situated, we just don't have the time to dedicate to the show. And so we're just going to take a quick week respite, and then we'll be back next week.
All right, to start, the trade deadline came and went, Avila made the move on Sunday. He traded Justin Wilson, Alex Avila.
Williams, bro. Justin Williams.
Wait, did I get that wrong? Okay, no. Inside joke there. Very interesting stuff, too, and we'll get into it as well regarding the competency, our perception of the competency of our general manager here with the Detroit Tigers. But what was your reaction to the haul that the Detroit Tigers got for Justin Wilson, their former closer, and Alex Avila, a catcher who came back and was pretty much productive prior to the last couple weeks?
Meh. Like it just
really,
I wasn't blown away by it. And here's the thing: this was your big trade piece, right? Justin Wilson was the guy. He was the guy who was supposed to bring us in the haul. And what they do? They went to the Cubs. And you know what? The Cubs have already been picked over by everybody. So you basically got their fourth best prospect, perhaps, and he's the one who's going to probably be able to contribute right away. And then you get an 18-year-old kid in the rookie league who you don't really know about, but everybody says he might have potential.
That's the reason.
Again, the scary word, might have potential.
That's the reason I think you and I are neutral, is that we got to do a lot of waiting and seeing. I mean, we would have liked to maybe have a little bit more potentially in terms of the overall haul for the trade for J.D. Martinez, Justin Wilson, and Alex Avila. But at the same time, I understand, and everybody else is saying the same thing, is that when you talk about prospects and you evaluate them and you say to yourself, how are these guys going to come in and affect the ball club? Candelario probably will be the guy that we get to see first, probably maybe even as soon as this September, where he might be called up, or next year because he's currently in AAA. He might be the most major league ready guy.
The issue with him, too, is he's an average fielder. Some reports have him as an average fielder. Some reports have him a below average fielder. Some have him as slightly above average. So we'll just be safe. We'll say he's an average fielder, which essentially you have with Nick Castellanos at third base. And that's what position he plays. He's a third baseman. And has a little bit of power. You know, he's not going to put up home runs like Miggy. So it's basically you've got Nick Castellanos.
So for me, my reaction was neutral. I'm not like meh. I'm not like, well, I'm horrified or really upset. I'm kind of neutral because I'm willing to wait, because obviously when you say sell 2 years ago, you've recognized that it's over. The window was shut. So I'm more in terms of evaluating, okay, what are these guys going to do? How much pressure are they going to have? Because, yeah, Justin Wilson was an up-and-coming closer that many people felt was going to be productive. And so for me, I'm neutral. I'm not upset. I'm not horribly happy. I'm looking at it and I'm evaluating it, and I'm saying, okay, these are guys that Avila has come out and said we've targeted, we wanted. He seems to be happy with the haul. Some analysts that are experts at evaluating prospects definitely agree that the return that they got for these guys much better than J.D. Martinez. And I'm not the kind of guy that just evaluates prospects or even looks in terms of, like, you know, looking at their advanced sabermetrics. I'm not watching any film from the minor leagues. I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, when the time comes and they're called up, what do they do? And so far, you know, the guys that have replaced them, Hicks, Aducey, they're doing the job, and they're at least productive, and they're making the Tigers still enjoyable to watch game in and game out. But when the brightest lights are on and they get called up to the big stage, you never know how somebody's going to react and how much time it's going to take. You know, people are starting to ask, you know, when should we expect the Tigers to be competitive? And most people are saying, realistically, if you want to be patient, 2020 minimum. So the trades that have been made are obviously intended to restock the infielders, because you look at it, there's a lot of arms in the minor leagues, but 5 minor league guys that you acquired, the first thing that I kept noticing was, wow, you're trying to acquire a lot of third basemen here. It really does seem
all
to
third basemen or shortstops.
It seems to me that Nick Castellanos is not impressing anybody in upper management. So what do you think it means that they've gotten 5 infielders in making these moves in 2017?
I think Avila took the buckshot approach. He sat there and he was like, okay, at some point I'm going to have to replace my entire infield, save Miguel Cabrera, because it doesn't look like you're going to be able to trade Miguel Cabrera because his contract is massive. At some point he might become a DH. You can pretty much just about get almost anybody to play first base as long as they can stretch out a little bit. So I don't think he's necessarily worried about first base. But I think he went the buckshot approach, trying to get as many guys who can sit there and play second base, shortstop, third base as possible. And in doing so, the biggest scorer was probably from the Cubs, and it was the 18-year-old Isaac Paredes. Look, he will probably transition over to being a second baseman. Right now he's playing third base and shortstop. They project him to be a second baseman, which now you've got Ian Kinsler's replacement in the pipeline. Nobody knows what's going to happen with Kinsler. Maybe he'll be traded in the offseason next year at the winter meetings. Maybe he'll get traded after this season, or maybe he'll get traded during next season. It's one of those things. You're not really sure what's going to happen with Ian Kinsler. I think the way he went about it, though, is he recognized that this team had a weakness, and they didn't have enough depth with guys who could play the infield. You have arms, and you have a couple outfielders out there. So let's just sit there and let's try to focus. And again, like you said, they're not ready to win now. They're not ready to win next year. This is going to be a long process. I went to the game on Saturday. I took my dads to the game, and we were on a bus, and we were driving over to the Tiger game. There were a couple different Tiger fans.
The Tigers played well. It was cool.
They did. They played. It was a good game. It was a fun game. It was interesting. As we're heading over there, everybody's kind of bitching, and everybody's just kind of going back and forth and just kind of upset with the way the Tiger season's going. And I looked at him and I was like, you got to be prepared for at least the next 2 to 3 years of this. At least. It's going to be brutal for the next couple of years. And really and truly, the way I feel about it, I think it's going to be a 5-year rebuild. I don't think they're going to be ready.
Minimum, yeah.
I don't think they're going to be ready in the next 2 or 3 years, no matter how many prospects you get. Because if you look at this team and what they did this year, they started the teardown process now. Like you said last season, they should have started the teardown process then. I'll tip my hat to you and said you were ahead of the curve and we should have listened to you instead of listening to me. I wanted to hold on for one more year. They didn't have anything left this year. So they started the rebuild process and the teardown process now. So you're in there demoing the team. You're going to have to do that again next year. You're going to have to get rid of some guys. And then you're probably going to have another year where you're going to get rid of some guys. And so now you're looking at 3 years of just a teardown to get new talent in here that you could hopefully coach up. And let's be honest, the Tigers minor league system gives us nothing to be hopeful for because they've not been able to bring any of their own guys to fruition. Justin Verlander was one of the only guys. And if you remember the way Justin Verlander started, it didn't look very promising. It was pretty brutal, actually. By the grace of God, he became a Cy Young pitcher, probably a two-time Cy Young pitcher. And if you look at what he's done in the World Series, it leaves a lot to be desired. He can dominate you in the playoffs, but when the light is the brightest and shines the hottest on him, he tends to wilt a little bit.
And now look, what's compounding the issue is this year in 2017, everyone's touting the market's low. I mean, the Dodgers are acquiring Yu Darvish. The Yankees are acquiring Sonny Gray. Had you decided maybe 2-3 years ago, okay, we're going to pull the plug, now this year you could have acquired some great talent, and maybe if you had not signed some talent to some ridiculous contract, you could have kept JD Martinez and you could have rebuilt by adding a Yu Darvish, by adding a Sonny Gray for cheap, because organizations were not even giving up their number one prospects to get these guys. So unfortunately, I'm left today feeling like we bought high and we're selling low. And that's not a winning formula to really get out there and rebuild. And so the question I want to ask you and get your perspective and take on is, did Avila, looking back at it now collectively, did he have to make these moves? Did he succumb to pressure? Obviously, the one move he had to make because JD Martinez was going to be an unrestricted free agent, you would get nothing, was JD Martinez letting him go. You had to get something for him. And by all accounts, the haul was very terrible, and he's been panned for it. But Alex Avila, Justin Wilson, if you look at it and you want to be a little bit skeptical or probe a little bit, could he have just waited until the offseason and really see if the market could have been better, or maybe wait until the middle of next year? Some people argue on the other side and say, look, closers can come and go. Justin Wilson could have fell off the face of the earth, and this point at the time of this trade deadline was the highest that you could get for a Justin Wilson. But it sucks because everyone's saying the market was pretty god-awful.
I want to start here. I want to start with the JD Martinez trade. If you look at what happened, now again, hindsight's 20/20, and I think he probably could have got more if he held on for a few more days, maybe got something a little bit better. But if you look at what happened with corner outfielders that have power, nobody was traded. So I think maybe Avila probably got the best he could get for JD Martinez, which just tells you what the market was this year. It was absolute garbage. It was horrid.
It's unfortunate because we don't need that. We need more.
Exactly. I think the two pieces you had to move. You had to move JD Martinez and you had to move Alex Avila. Those were the two guys you had to move. And Alex Avila was probably a guy you could have moved much earlier when he was red hot, when he was sitting there hitting 400. That was a guy you could have moved and probably got a little bit more for. Justin Wilson, you probably could have waited a little bit. You could have maybe done that during the winter meetings. You could have maybe tried to package Justin Wilson and Justin Verlander together and got something nice back in return. There's going to be a club out there who's going to lose a pitcher to whatever the contracts are. If the Tigers were willing to sit there and pony up a little bit of cash, cover part of Verlander's salary, throw Wilson into. Maybe you get, I don't know, two of their top 5 prospects, and maybe you get a top 10 prospect. And then at that point, we're looking at each other like, oh, that's not too bad because we're not going to win now. So I think you can sit there and you can dissect this a couple different ways, and you can look at it a few different ways here. You can say, yes, J.D. Martinez had to go, and yes, Alex Avila had to go, and he probably did the best that he could to get those guys. I don't think Justin Wilson needed to be included if this was all that you were going to get back. Because Candelario, I don't know what he's going to be, and he just kind of looks like he's a slightly upgraded version of Nick Castellanos. And if you remember when Nick Castellanos was his age, Nick Castellanos was, he was the bee's knees. He was that guy. He was the one guy that every other major league team wanted, but the Tigers wouldn't trade him. And now you got him, and you see what he does every single day. And sometimes he struggles to get the ball to first from third. Sometimes he hits well. Other times he's in massive slumps. He's such an up and down player. He's super bipolar. I think the writing is on the wall for Castellanos, though. I think he will be finding another new position. If you remember, this guy started in third, went to the outfield, came back to third, and now I think he's going to probably end up at first base.
Yeah, you look at Nick Castellanos, and he's obviously done a lot better in terms of the offense, in recent weeks, but at the same time, his defense, it leaves a lot to be decided. And I don't believe Avila when he comes out and says, oh, look, we're just trying to replenish the minor leagues and try to get more depth. No, you've targeted pretty much a couple positions, and it leads us to believe and speculate that Nick Castellanos is not going to be the everyday third baseman. And he shouldn't be because he's not effective. He's not good enough. And when your WAR is not that good, you definitely have to look at it and say to yourself, okay, we got to go out there and get somebody else.
Can we talk about Avila real quick?
Yes.
And I just want to know kind of how you feel. I sat there the other morning. I was at the gym. I was working out. I believe it was Tuesday morning. I was working out, and I had 97.1 on in my headphones. It's generally what I listen to when I work out. I don't listen to my DMX anymore when I work out because I just get a little bit too angry, and the gym I have says you can't clang weights around. So I always get yelled at because it's a pussy gym. Let's just be honest. That's what it is. So anyways, I listen to 97.1. It keeps me usually even keeled. A lot of times I'll be sitting there lifting something heavy, and I'll start giggling, and then I'm going to end up hurting myself, but whatever. Anyways, they had on Avila, and numerous times through their conversation with Avila, even Jamie Samuelson tried to correct Avila and let him know that it's Justin Wilson, not Justin Williams. You just traded this guy. You just traded him, and you can't get his name right. You don't know who he is. Mind you, this is the same general manager who has probably about 4 different pronunciations for his last name, so it probably shouldn't surprise me that he doesn't know how to pronounce this guy's last name. How much confidence does it instill in you when your general manager can't get the number one trade chip you had this trade season? You can't get his name right. Because I'm sitting there and I'm scratching my head, and then I'm scratching my butt, and I'm smelling my finger, and I'm like, this guy's an asshole. Like, he is. Like, you can't get this guy. Like, and it's not even like like Wilson and Williams. Well, first, they both start with W's, but they're not common. They're not even similar to each other.
What time was the interview? Was it before 9 o'clock?
It was like 9. I think it was like 9:30.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so this guy had time to sleep. He should have had a coffee. I mean, unless he's rolling out of bed and he's got his flip flops on and he's standing in his kitchen, like, oh, let's talk about this.
No, he should be at Comerica.
He was at the office.
No, he should be at Comerica. He should be looking at the trade and have his name right there in front of him. For me, I was a little bit more taken aback. I didn't hear it live. I heard Valeni's take on it, and it was.
I was
quite
sitting
hilarious.
there and I was embarrassed. I was embarrassed to be a Tiger fan.
And the part that was really baffling was the notion that some teams called him and he might not have returned the calls in a proper manner.
Regarding Verlander, yeah.
Yeah, so you explore that and you say, okay, the question we're going to ask is, are we confident in our general manager that the plan is in place to help this team rebuild in a proper way, the fastest way possible, to get them to be competitive? And I think most of the fans, most people, when they answer that question, are you confident in Avila? The answer is no. And the reason is because of the fact that one of the first moves you made was trading J.D. Martinez. You didn't get a lot back. If you want to step back, last offseason you exposed your hand, and that's probably why Justin Verlander wasn't traded last year when you had an opportunity maybe to make a move. And so I think he negotiated from a position of weakness. I feel like there's a strong chance he might not even be around to complete the rebuild because of the fact that the plan in place doesn't seem to be one that's instilling a lot of confidence in people.
Let's go back even further. He's the reason for the Jordan Zimmerman signing.
Exactly.
That was his guy. That was his contract signing.
Zimmerman, Lowe, Pelfrey, you have
These are
a lot
all
of
his
contracts,
guys.
and that prevents you from keeping JD Martinez. So I believe that the confidence that the fans have is pretty low. We're taking a wait-and-see approach, but many people wouldn't be upset or even blink an eye if he was let go along with Brad Ausmus. And I think the single greatest decision is not going to involve payroll, is not going to involve talent. When you come in as a new general manager and you have an opportunity to get a new manager, your guy, and you hitch your wagon to Brad Ausmus, I'm sorry, I said it when he took the job. When Avila came in, the first thing he should have did was, Brad, thank you very much. Appreciate your time and service. I'm going to go out here and find somebody else. Now you open yourself up to criticism because I sit here and I say, you evaluated Brad Ausmus. You knew what he was capable of. If you can't win 90 games with Hall of Famers like Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander, Victor Martinez, you can't win with those guys. Now you're going to try and sell me that you're going to win with a bunch of young guys under Brad Ausmus when there's mistake after mistake. If you even want to go to last week, you bring in Bruce Rondon after he was a gas can. Yeah, now he's recovered, but you lost a game. Brad Ausmus cost you a game by inserting Bruce Rondon into a game where he doesn't perform well and he gives up runs and he looks atrocious. And people are like, don't you have a feel for this by now? It's been 4 years. I don't see why you deserve year 5. So for me, I'm critical and I'm not confident in the future because of the fact he retained Brad Ausmus. Simple as that.
Would you be surprised, though, if Avila survives this, makes it through the winter meetings, ends up being the general manager all next year, and Brad Ausmus is brought back? He's already gone on record stating that he likes what Brad Ausmus can do with young players. And this team is transitioning to a team that is built with nothing but young players. I mean, I don't know if you're going to be able to move Verlander. I would hope that you'd be able to move Verlander. I'd also hope that you'd be able to move Miguel Cabrera just to sit there and get those massive contracts off the books. And then, go out there and try to build like the Astros did by trading, being brutal for a couple years. And you look at what the Astros are, they're a really good baseball team. But you know what? They hit on some of those draft picks. They hit on some of that young talent. I mean, Jose Altuve is a hell of a player. That guy's incredible to watch. You know, I sat there and watched him live on Saturday, like I said. He's outstanding. I mean, even when he sits there and he hits a fly ball, the sound that comes off the bat makes you stand up, makes you sit, and makes you watch. And you're just like, is that going to go? Okay, cool. It fell a little bit short. I mean, you still sit up straight in your seat when he hits the ball, and you're like, oh, man, it's got a shot. And you're uncomfortable with it. We don't have guys like that. Who's that guy? Christian Stewart? And most of you are like, who the hell is that? Yeah, he's some outfielder that they have in their minor league system. He's supposed to be the second coming of Christ to the outfielder position for this team. On other teams, he's a 4A player. That's what he is. He's not that good. His team is crap.
Yeah.
The minor league system is junk. It's going to be brutal. Don't be surprised if Avila's here next year and the year after that, and don't be surprised if Brad Ausmus is the one sitting there coaching these pylons.
The minor league system is not as bad as maybe you're pointing it out to be. I mean, they're adding talent.
It was the 25th ranked minor league system going into the trade deadline. You ended up upgrading it with maybe 3 talents who are somewhat decent. Somewhat decent. And mind you, these somewhat decent talents were the picked over parts of other ball clubs.
And interesting, too, those that say the minor league system is great. You got the likes of Manning, Burrows. You got a lot of infielders potentially that are going to be up. Why didn't you maybe sell them for the likes of a Yu Darvish, the likes of a Sonny Gray?
Yu Darvish is a rental, that's why.
I understand that, but I'm saying that, you know, in terms of flipping players, why not go out there and maybe move and start the process now if you're going to rebuild? The last thing I want to talk to you about is the perception and the notion that the Tigers are trying to spin. Do you think it's a salary dump, or do you feel like they're trying to spin it in a way to not let people think they're trying to be cheap? Because while it's not like you're going to give away players to reduce salary, you know they're not going to spend $200 million. So if they're going to spend $150 and it's not $200, that would indicate that there is an onus or at least a plan in place to get the franchise to spend a certain amount. So you can't tell me haphazardly that the Tigers are just haphazardly making a plan of how much they're going to spend. They know the number. So it just seems to me like they're trying to pull the wool over everyone's eyes and take us as being stupid because, yeah, if you want to use semantics and not call it a salary dump, but in the end, It's a salary dump. You're trying to lower your payroll and stop trying to come out here and spin it in a way where you're offending everybody, because the payroll is going to be less. The days of $200 million are over. It's going to be in the neighborhood of 150, 160, whatever it may be. I love the phrase that they're using. We're going to go with younger. I love the way they added the cheaper part, like third or fourth. Younger, more athletic, more flexible, more in control, more affordable. You know what I mean? They add that little caveat at the end if you listen, but it's just spin. The Tigers are dumping salary. There has to be an onus, because otherwise I'm throwing it back to Avila and saying, okay, there's no salary dump. Spend $225 and get this team to be a winner. Spend more money. Get guys in here that are going to produce. If you can't win at $200, spend $210 and get some talent in here. You can't lie to people. You can't make people believe the nonsense when you just inquire and probe. It's a salary dump.
This team was spending, like you said, almost $200 million, $199.750 is what they spent this year. All right, so they're trying to get closer to being middle of the pack. They'd like to be somewhere right around where Kansas City, Colorado, Cleveland is, where they're spending just north of like $120 million a year. That's what they want to do. This is totally a salary dump. Their hope is that they can sit there and cut a ton of payroll and yet still be relatively competitive, where they can sit there and they're in the discussion come late September for the wild card. You know what I'm saying? They want to be able to sit there and be in the mix in August, and then as we're moving to September, they want to sit there and they want to still be duking it out for that last wild card spot, and they want to sit there and hope that you still come to these games, that you attend there, and that you're still buying $10 beers and you're buying $8 nachos. That's what they want. That's what Chris Ilitch wants. And then I think in a few years he's going to turn around, he's going to flip this team. He's going to sit there and try to sell it off. Goris will come in, or Dan Gilbert, who's buying up everything in downtown, will come in, and Gilbert's going to sit there, he's going to buy that up, and then he's going to bulldoze something else, and that's where your MLS stadium's going to go. So, yeah, don't be surprised if that's what happens. My prediction, next 3 years, all that comes to fruition. This team gets their payroll down. They're somewhere in the in that middle group there between Kansas City and Cleveland, somewhere around $120, maybe $130 million. That's what their payroll's at. They just kind of flirt with the wild card every now and again, not real consistent, just kind of flirt with it. They get a little bit hot, and then going to try to flip it. I mean, honestly, Chris Ilitch is going to be so consumed with Little Caesar Land. That's what I'm going to call it from now on. That whole Little Caesars Arena and everything around it's going to be Little Caesar Land. He's going to be so focused on that. His hands are going to be in the pie there, mixing all that around, flipping the dough, getting the sauce nice, and sitting there worrying about all the new businesses coming into whatever the storefronts are that are going to be right down there. That's what his focus is going to be. He's going to end up selling this off. And why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Look at what the Marlins are going for right now. Do you know what I'm saying? Why not be able to take something like that? I mean, look, you don't want the Tigers anymore. That was your dad's thing. Sell them off. Stuff that in your coffers and turn around and go play at Caesarland.
Many people are going to explore and review the prospects, and all we got to do is hope that they come up and really live up, and we have to have a surprise. Maybe it's Paredes, maybe it's Lugo. Hell, maybe all three can be productive. Lugo, Candelario, and Paredes can come up here and handle the business. But we'll take our first time out, come back. We got to talk about the Detroit Lions.
We're going to talk about the good organization in town.
Yes.
The good one. And the one that's made you feel like crap for the last 55 years.
A major injury now in training camp has just occurred, not to the Detroit Lions, but to another franchise. We'll tell you who it is right after this. Doc and Jock here. We want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic. When Adam and I first started this project, we were looking for a place to host all of our recorded audio. And thank goodness we found Podomatic.com. If you're looking to start a brand new podcast, and we recommend you use Podomatic because of their great customer service, very friendly staff. You generate links pretty easily. It takes literally no time at all to upload all of your recorded audio. Why take all the effort to produce a great podcast, record your audio? Maybe you have a studio, and then when you go to upload your audio, you can't generate great links, or the service conks out and nobody can listen to it. Since 2013, we've only used one host site, and that's Podomatic.com. Just checking Twitter. Sterling Shepard, New York Giant, carted off the field, grimacing, not looking good. Whenever training camp starts, I know we all get excited for football, but if you're a fan of the Giants, that guy was expected to take the next step, and he was the complimentary piece last year to OBJ, carted off the field, not looking good. My goodness.
If you're Adam's fantasy team and you're looking at keepers for this year, that's not good.
That's not good.
He was in the running to be one of my keepers.
Oh, man. Well, it's exciting times, man. Everyone's looking at Matthew Stafford. Everyone's wondering about that contract, but I'm definitely excited that, Lions training camp started. You definitely get all the same kind of stuff after doing this for 4 years now. 2013 training camp, 14, 15, 16, 17. You start to realize the guys are saying the same things year in and year out. Jim Caldwell literally is basically standing in front of the media and saying the same things that he said last year. We have hopes. We want to clean things up. We want to get better every day. Matthew Stafford's being professional, talking about how he doesn't want to talk about his contract. It literally, when I was listening to the first couple talks with the media, I'm like, damn, you could have looped whatever they said in 2016. It's going to sound like the same nonsense. So I know they try to keep information super tight, super sealed. The media can only get a glimpse of a couple plays here and there, so you're not getting a lot of information. Everything's super protected, but I'm excited to know that there is a version of the Detroit Lions that's out there. They're trying to get better, trying to work on things, and it's an exciting time to look at the Detroit Lions and to discuss all of the news and notes, definitely because of the fact that, hey, we all miss football. It's been a long 8 months, and we're all ready to fire it back up and have some fun letting it rip talking about the Lions. I'm a little more optimistic than in years past, but definitely with the injury to Taylor Decker, it has made me feel a little bit like I'm starting off at 8-8 instead of 10-6, just because of the fact that injuries are going to happen, and they've already mounted so far for the Lions early on in training camp.
Yeah, every time OTAs, training camps start, there's always that risk of injury. I mean, you've seen Taylor Decker go down earlier this year, and now this team just seems like it's losing guys left and right. It doesn't sound like it's anybody who is super, I don't want to say super, and this is probably the worst way to put it, not super significant, but these are important pieces that have sat there, and they've already gone down with some injuries. I think the thing is, what you can hope for is that it happens early on in training camp. These guys sit there, they go down, it's nothing super significant. They can sit there, rebound, and they'll be back there for the first day of the real games. I mean, look, there's going to be many more injuries that are going to occur. It happens every single year. Football is one of those games where it's a war of attrition. Sit there, guys get hurt all the time. Left and right, guys go down. Guys get put on the PUP list. Guys end up sitting there and having to make their way back from injury. And just the hope is that they're there for the first game. That's what you want. Taylor Decker's probably not going to be there. If he's there at all this season, Taylor Decker's probably not going to be there till sometime around week 10 or 11. I'm not counting on him playing at all this year. He ended up having a torn labrum. That's a pretty serious injury. It hurts. It's a pain to get back from. Some of the other guys that have already gone down, I mean, it was the first day of OTAs, and you had the perfect picture of Eric Ebron basically tapping his head like, somebody help, I need to come out.
The irony is, you know who posted that? He did. That's from his account.
Did he?
That's from his account saying this is the year, so that's why people really caught on, and those that were in the know were like, oh my God, that's why I follow you, because of the fact that he posted that saying, this is the start of the next thing that I want to do better at. And I'm like, oh, of course, so that's why the caption was perfect. Trainer.
I thought that was so, I was sitting there, I was scrolling through, and I was like, that is so funny.
It is, man. It's unbelievable, when you look at the Lions. But I guess we'll start with the main talking points and the main thing that people want to know about. I think everyone knows my stance in that if you're going to back the Brinks truck up for Matthew Stafford and the value you're putting on him is $30 million for 4 to 5 years, it just, no matter what, you can't convince me that Matthew Stafford's worth 5 years, $150 million. That's just my opinion. I'm probably wrong. Many people that are, writers and in the know that support Matthew Stafford will say, hey, this is the best you're going to get. You got to pay the man. But I'm definitely more comfortable at 4 years, $100 million than I am when I look at it. And I just tell myself, if you just ask me, is Matthew Stafford worth 5 years, $150 million? The next thing I say is he better bring home 1, maybe 2 Super Bowl rings at that price, because a guy like Tom Brady is taking a massive discount to allow his team to have guys on the team that are not even superstars. He takes a discount, and the best receiver that basically he's ever had is Randy Moss. They don't pay a ton of guys. And Can the Lions get 7 to 9 wins or even more with a game manager and spreading $30 million around for a defensive line, for a superstar running back, for another receiver? You could add damn near 4 positions at that price, or 2 superstars that you pay $15 million a year. I just don't feel, and I'm open to suggestions, I'm open to debate, I don't feel Stafford's worth 5 years, $150 million, $30 million a year. And I know everyone's speculating, and they're reacting to the fact that they're far apart, but I'm Team Quinn. I'm like, look, show me. This is the year, play this year out, and I fully support Bob Quinn if the decision's made to let Stafford play on this contract. Or you say to yourself, look, after 8 games and it's a rough go, you trade him. I'm all on Team Quinn. Whatever he's thinking, I'm thinking too, because I do realize, though, there's been articles that have been put out that we could be overreacting, that yes, they might be far apart now, but Matthew Stafford's agent, Tom Condon, has a history of doing deals late, even signing deals into week 1 of the NFL season for the players that he works with. So we could be definitely nitpicking and overreacting, but plain and simple, I'm on Team Quinn. If it's a wait-and-see approach, if they don't want to pay, if they want to be in the neighborhood of $26 million, then I'm definitely on board with that. I just can't, you can't say anything to me that's going to make me say, yes, he's worth $30 million for 5-6 years, a boatload of money guaranteed. I don't see it.
Well, let's look at this from Matt Stafford's perspective and Matt Stafford's camp's perspective. All right, it doesn't behoove you to sit there and sign some contract at 4 years, $100 million. I mean, $25 million is now the going price. That's what David Carr got. So now Matt Stafford and the NFLPA and everybody else is coming in to push that number up even higher. So you're going to wait for a guy like Kirk Cousins to get franchised again. All right, and if Kirk Cousins gets franchised after this season, that number that he's looking at, that Matt Stafford's looking at, goes up even more. If Matt Stafford gets franchised next year, he's looking at roughly $26 million, okay? If he gets franchised again after that,
it pushes over 30.
Yes, he's over $30
guaranteed.
million. Exactly. So at what point does it behoove Matt Stafford or Matt Stafford's camp or anybody in the NFLPA to come to the Lions and say, hey, you know what? We'll take a sweetheart deal. Go ahead. Give us $25 million a season. It doesn't make sense for those guys, nor do I think the NFLPA, I don't think they'll allow him to do that. Matt Stafford, if Matt Stafford comes in and gets a deal somewhere right around, I don't know, $27, $28 million, honestly, you're getting a deal.
Here's the problem,
you're getting a bonus
This is the crazy story that a quarterback from Michigan State, Kirk Cousins, is going to set the market for the Detroit Lions. Kirk Cousins is probably not even worth $30 million a year, but you're starting at a point where Matthew Stafford and his agent are going, we look at this guy, Kirk Cousins, and we know that on the open market, because I don't see the Redskins continuing to compound their errors, he's going to go on the open market and he's going to get $30 million. So we could be sitting here right now underestimating what he's asking for. He might be asking for 32, 33. He might be really going high, and the number that the Lions are going is at 26. And when they say far apart, he might damn near be asking for 32, 33, $34 million a year. And when you say far apart, I can't believe that Kirk Cousins and his situation is playing a part for Matthew Stafford and the numbers that he's throwing out there. It's crazy to think about.
But wouldn't it be smart if you are the Lions to sit there and lock Matt Stafford up? Whatever the cost is, whatever it is.
No.
Because you
tough decisions.
You lost.
No.
At one point, you had 3 guys that you could sit there and you could call your franchise player. You lost Calvin Johnson, right? You sat there, you lost Ndamukong Suh, and now you might lose your quarterback. A position that you haven't been able to get correct. I mean, let's be honest here. This is the most important guy. This is the guy who touches the ball, who has the ball in his hand every single offensive possession that you have. And if your defense is worth a damn, you have the ball in your hands a lot more than they do when your defensive players are out there. So wouldn't it behoove the Lions to sit there and lock a guy like Matt Stafford up?
Nope.
I mean, you have no idea what you got with a guy like a Jake Rudock.
I think that's why Bob Quinn gets paid the big bucks. If the Lions sign Matthew Stafford to a contract over $30 million a year for 6 years, I think it will hamstring the organization, and you're going to start to realize that some tough decisions will be made and guys will be cut. How are you going to sign a Ziggy Ansah? How are you going to sign impactful running backs? How are you going to sign a franchise wide receiver? How are you going to sign a linebacker? You're going to have to cut, and I feel like the number for Stafford that's fair is around the neighborhood of $27 million. That's the number that's currently fair. I know that they're negotiating against what the future is going to be for Kirk Cousins, but at the same time, The situation is, I'm thinking with what Bob Quinn's thinking. I can't pay Stafford $30 million when I can just watch him this year and really decide, because he's watched him year one, got to the postseason when the offense was called upon to score. They didn't do it. Now they're trying to build more pieces around him. They're building an offensive line. They've given him every single opportunity to go out there. And the worst thing, though, that could happen is, I wonder if Bob Quinn has the balls to stand up there, let Stafford play out this year, and let him go. Free and clear. Sayonara. I think if there's no deal signed by the trade deadline, we could be seriously talking about some trades in this season for Matthew Stafford, because if a guy like Sam Bradford can garner a first-round pick, what can you get for Stafford? I'm thinking Team Quinn all the way. No, when you say, do you have to lock it up? I sit here and debate you and say, I would take that money and flush it around and get more talent. When I get 5 guys that produce, then I can maybe go down and get a game manager, because we've all seen what Stafford brings to the table. I don't think that any improvement that he's going to make in the next 6 years is going to propel this team. So if you're going to way overspend, now you've hitched your wagon to this guy, you're calling upon him to win the Super Bowl, and I think we're all getting set up to fail. That's my opinion. No one's going to change it.
I don't think top 10 quarterbacks.
You want to pay the
off.
man, huh? You want to pay him.
The thing is, I don't. He has all the power. Matt Stafford has all the power. Top 10 quarterbacks don't just fall off trees. And he's a franchise quarterback at this point in his career.
Man.
And he has shown time and time again he can make this offense cook. If you sit there and you give him a few guys, he can do some things. Mind you, he sat there and he helped this team get to the playoffs without a running game last year, all by himself. So he has sat there and he's proven that he can get you to almost to the promised land. You know what I'm saying? And again, almost to the promised land. But he has proven time and time again that he is a good enough quarterback in this league. He deserves to be paid. When it comes down to it, I'm in the same camp as you. I think $27 million is probably the ceiling I'm willing to pay for this guy. You do have to sit there and you do have to put a few other guys around him. He's not yet made a superstar out of anybody. I mean, can you tell me the next great white wide receiver that he's invented? Because he hasn't done it with any. I mean, and I think that's kind of the going joke, and that's kind of the going thing when you look at top tier elite quarterbacks. I mean, you look at what Tom Brady's done. Essentially, he's every white wide receiver, he's invented them. You look at Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he's got white running backs that you just kind of shake the salt shaker and they just fall out everywhere, all over the place over there. He can take Amenderis, who is now on this roster, and he can turn him into something great. And Aaron Rodgers was able to sit there and trick around a little bit with him last season. Then, hey, you know what? Go ahead, pay the man $35 million. I don't give a damn.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
All right.
But
do you think a deal gets done? Training camp? No deal.
No, because I don't think it behooves Matt Stafford to do it. I think it is in his best interest to sit there and play this out. Go ahead, franchise me. Franchise me again. Franchise me 3 times. And you know what that does to your organization? It totally cripples it.
Yeah.
So go ahead and do it if you want. I think there may be a deal that gets done. I don't think it gets done this year.
Okay, so now people are starting to talk about some of the performances that they're seeing out there at training camp. Everyone's raving about what the Lions did in terms of improving Allen Park. And by all accounts, everyone's loving it. They're going out there, having a good old time. Kenny Golladay is the name that's being talked about quite a bit. He's burning guys, but at the same time, people have said, whoa, relax. He's going out there and burning reserves that are on the Lions secondary. He's got to go out there and do it during the regular season. But at this point in time, everyone's talking about Kenny Golladay, his size, and the fact that he seems to have his head on straight, wants to win, wants to put his nose to the grindstone, and be a guy that can maybe earn a spot and be the number 3 behind Marvin Jones and Golden Tate. With Kenny Golladay seeing more time, do you think that he solidifies his spot number 3, and can he have a productive rookie season? Because most rookies, when they come in at the wide receiver spot, they're not really that productive year one.
I'm not expecting to see kind of what you've seen out of OBJ when he finally got the ball rolling. He came back off the PUP list, and when he came back from his injury reserve stints, I'm not expecting to see that from this guy. But
be productive. Just get out there and make some noise.
I can see this guy essentially being what you wanted Marvin Jones to be last year. I can sit there and picture him, and if I got the same production from him that I got in total from Marvin Jones last year, I would take that all day long from a rookie. Now, Marvin Jones was incredibly productive for 2 or 3 games very early in the season, and then after that, what he did was for the next 12 games, he matched his production from his first 4 games. And when you look at the numbers in total, you're like, yeah, it's not too bad, I guess. Everybody was expecting a little bit more from a guy like a Marvin Jones. If you can get that from Kenny Golladay as a rookie, you're going to take that and you're going to run with it. Kenny Golladay can be your deep threat and can be your red zone threat. I think that's outstanding for this team. I think what you then have is you have Matt Stafford, who has wide receivers who can sit there and play on different levels all over the field. Golden Tate is essentially your slot guy. He's your guy who can sit there and take your 5-yard dump off, and he can turn that into a 10 or a 15-yard pass. I think Marvin Jones, I think his area where he's going to be most comfortable this season is playing on that other level. He's going to sit there and he's going to be somewhere near. Are you okay over there? Are you okay? Is everything good? Oh, yeah. Are we checking on lunch right now? Is that what's going on here? Just so everybody knows what's going on in the studio. If you heard silverware clanging around, because I heard it in my headphones. So it's on here. And I want you to leave it on here. Leave all this on here, okay? Don't go and play master producer and get that off. You're over there looking at, was that a salad you had? That looked good. It looked delicious.
I'm getting hungry, man. No doubt.
It looked, well, I did have you come in early for this, and I appreciate you doing that for me. But yeah, that looked like a good salad. Your wife make that for you?
No doubt.
Yeah, she's a good cook.
No
I miss her feeding me.
Yes, right.
She was outstanding at it. Anyways, Marvin Jones will probably be that guy who's going to sit there and play on that next level above Golden Tate. Golden Tate, like I said, he's your flats receiver. He can sit there and get you, turn that 5-yard pass into a 10 or 15-yard scamper down the field. I think Marvin Jones, what ends up happening is he is now playing in that 10, maybe that 15-yard area, but Golladay is going to be the guy who's going to take the top off the defense for you. You might not see it this rookie season, but I think going forward, that's going to be his role. And I think he's going to be your big guy, your red zone target. He's going to sit there and take it to the house for you. It'll be interesting. I think he's going to be productive. I think if you get similar production from what you got out of a guy like Marvin Jones last year, I think we take this and we run with this. And look, I know he's a rookie. I know he's a third-round pick. I know he came from a school that everybody's like, where? What? The MAC? What? Exactly. I know. I understand. And maybe I'm smoking the peace pipe a little bit too hard very early on in OTAs. But I think there's some good signs coming out of Kenny Golladay, and I think there's some good signs coming out of Lions OTAs with this wide receiver.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being super concerned, 1 being it's all good, how concerned are you regarding the injury for Taylor Decker and the Lions trying to replace the productivity that he was definitely going to give you? Left tackle, it's the quarterback's blind spot. You got to be able to protect Matthew Stafford and be able to, ward off guys that are trying to take Matthew Stafford's head off. And I'll be damned if Taylor Decker gets rushed back too soon, week 8, and he lets up a block. He doesn't perform his duties, and Stafford gets crunched. Because at the same time, Stafford's also gambling if he doesn't get a contract too, because look what happened to the Minnesota quarterback. He damn near tore his knee off of his bone.
Teddy Bridgewater's knee went kaboom.
So that's a big gamble too.
Explosion.
That should be looked at for Matthew Stafford. But do you have any concern about right now going into the season with the reserves?
I do have some concern, and I think you should have concern. I think you'd be stupid not to be concerned. Taylor Decker came in and played outstanding. Played above what we all, I think, expected for him as a rookie left tackle. And he really seemed to help solidify that offensive line. And then they go out this offseason and they bring in a few other guys who really sit there and they seem to solidify that right side. And we're like, okay, cool. We've got a offensive line with Pro Bowl caliber cats up and down it, guys who are essentially all-stars from Jump Street. Let's go out there and let's make some noise. Let's do some things. Let's get this running game going. Let's help Matt Stafford out, and let's allow Matt Stafford a bunch of clean sheets where he's not getting knocked around in the backfield anymore. And then OTAs happen, and Taylor Decker goes down. And now it's a huge question mark on who's going to help protect his blind side. And that being said, they've got basically a revolving door right now through training camp. And I think that's a good thing because you're trying out different guys, you're trying out different systems, you're trying out different schemes, and you want to put your best system, your best guy, your best scheme out there to protect Matt Stafford. And I don't think any of these guys are going to do the bang-up job that Taylor Decker did. But if you can get somewhat close for him, I think that's a good sign and that's a good thing. If you can sit there and you can tell me, look, Taylor Decker was 100%. You can tell me you're going to give me a guy who's going to operate at 75%. I'll take that. Do you know why I'll take that? Because I can adjust my scheme. If my offensive coordinator is what I think my offensive coordinator is, We can adjust the playbook to sit there and help those guys out. Maybe not get them at the level that Taylor Decker was at 100%, but we can get them up there near 90, 95%, and we can just sit there and we can operate our offense just a little bit different. Now we're doing short dump-offs, even shorter dump-offs perhaps. Maybe Amir Abdullah takes that step forward. Maybe Theo Riddick is that guy who can sit there and he can, catch the ball and then he can get upfield for you and he can be your wide receiver out of the backfield, what you envision him to be. Maybe Zach Zenner is going to sit there and he's going to help you and he's going to run through the tackles more than 10 times a game. You now have to facilitate different guys with different roles doing different things, and maybe those guys can arise to where they take that pressure off of the left tackle position. I think they've got some guys where they can do that. No, I don't think anybody's going to be what Taylor Decker was, and no, I don't think we're going to have a guy who is Taylor Decker on this team going into this season until Taylor Decker comes back. But I think you got guys that can sit there and help carry the burden and help carry the load.
All right, we're going to take our final timeout. Exciting times. Can't wait for the first preseason game. Even though, like I said, most people, it's just a bunch of reserves and, the starters play a couple series. It's still fun to have football back. We're reaching a point now where there will be no weekends without football, both professional and college football. So it's a good time all around. We definitely missed football, and I love the fact that we're going to get a chance to dissect the Detroit Lions. Stay with us. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast or any of the other podcasts on our network, definitely check out DetroitSportsPodcast.com. It's where you can go to stream all of our podcasts 24/7 on demand. And if you also like what you're listening to, go over to iTunes, subscribe, listen, give us a 5-star rating. We greatly appreciate it. We have been able to produce podcasts 6 days a week thanks to everybody's support, all the new subscribers and supporters. We greatly appreciate it. Go check out DetroitSportsPodcast.com. You can buy sports tickets. You can click through the Amazon banner to take care of all your online shopping needs. Definitely check out the hub of the operation. You can see which show airs when and who is behind the podcast that you've come to grow and love since September of 2013. Thanks to everyone's great support. Go check out and visit DetroitSportsPodcast.com. What a week in wrestling. Last week's DocNJock Pro-Wrestling Report was definitely an enjoyable thing to talk about, and it came true. I was very happy that Shinsuke Nakamura was put over. It's going to be hopefully Shinsuke Nakamura versus Jinder Mahal, and there's a better than 50% chance that Shinsuke walks away with the WWE World Championship, and that was cool. But we have to start with the atrocity that was Raw. I'm totally shocked that Raw has gotten to the point where it is right now. It's to the point where, and I messaged our supporters and I said, look, right now, you watch that show and you sit and you ask yourself, why am I watching this? This is poorly written. This is really not moving any of the storylines. This is a show that, you know what, going forward, I might just, go check out the dirt sheets and read about what happened. Because of the fact that you had placement of matches that were so poor, I was so disappointed that Raw's main event was Big Cass versus The Big Show. 6 minutes for the main event. It didn't do nothing. These guys have fought each other before. So I'm evaluating Raw, and all I kept saying to myself was, this is horrible. This isn't fun to watch. It's, you had one great match, and that was a triple threat match, and that's what you definitely needed to see. You needed to see a pay-per-view match on Raw. But Raw was so bad. Did you get that sense this week? It was atrocious.
It was boring. It was super boring, and I think it was horrid booking is really what it was. You had your main event at your 2 o'clock, your 2 hour spot, which I don't know why Raw doesn't go back to 2 hours. You see how successful it works with SmackDown. SmackDown does have some lulls now and again, but 2 hours is more than enough. I feel like they tried to cram so many different angles, so many different things into Raw. If you just did 2 hours, you just said, screw it, let's do 2 hours.
It cuts out the garbage, the cruiserweights that don't need to be there. You have a show for them. Make it on 205 Live. My God, the cruiserweights aren't doing nothing. It's just, it kills the show, it kills the momentum. And I for once, the match with Bayley and Nia Jax was one where I finally said, this is horrible.
It was brutal. It was bad. And now Bayley is injured. That whole spot where Nia Jax grabs her by her head and throws her to the mat and she falls on her shoulder and then slides out of the ring, she legitimately hurt herself there. Then Nia Jax goes in there and tries to put her in some type of a submission move where she sits there and wrenches on the shoulder again, making it even worse. So
what was worse, Nia or Shinsuke almost decapitating Cena with that suplex? Ooh, that was a rough suplex.
I watched that and I was like, "Oh no!" And then I paused it and I watched it again. I was like, "Oh damn, no!" Then you see Nakamura at the end go up to him and apologize to him live in the ring, and I was like, "Oh no!" Vince has to be losing his mind somewhere in the back. You just you just broke kayfabe live on TV.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man.
Jax can't wrestle, and she's not.
No, and she gets the push because of who she's related to and because she's big. You don't need to see it. She needs to go back to NXT.
Yeah.
She needs to. She needs more training. She needs to be more refined. Send her back. Bring her back with a new gimmick. Something totally different. Just do. A lot of times their initial gimmick doesn't work. Look at Stone Cold Steve Austin. His first gimmick did not work. He was like the $6 million man. It wasn't very good. Sent him away. Brought him back as Stone Cold Steve Austin. And you know what? Outstanding. The moment he cut that promo on King of the Ring when he was sitting there talking about Jake the Snake, it was so over. The very next night, it was white hot, man, and he didn't die down for another 5 or 6 years after that. So sometimes you gotta have a bad gimmick here or there, go away, come back, and then it's good, But yes, you're right. Raw is way too long. It is boring. It's like a lot of filler. That's all it is. It's a ton of filler. You got you to the 2-hour spot where you had your triple threat match, which should have been your main event. From there, it was all downhill. Like, why did we didn't, the Bayley Nia Jax match was awful, okay? And then you had your Big Cass, Big Show match.
Boo,
and
terrible.
Look, Big Show did everything he could do in that match, right? He tried carrying it. Cass it's not working. Whatever they're trying to do with him, it's not working.
The entrance was horrible. The entrance music, did you hear the entrance music? It was terrible.
It's awful.
And so one of the biggest indictments on Raw is you had a great segment with Miz and Jason Jordan. Crickets. Jason Jordan is coming out there trying to front. You see a look potentially of a guy that could be a superstar.
Yes.
But he delivers that suplex, and everyone's just kind of like, okay.
Which is the thing. He's not a very charismatic guy.
It's so brutal.
You put him in with Miz, who is so charismatic, and Miz makes you love him and makes you hate him all at the same time. It's
didn't
insane.
do his job. He didn't do his job.
Yeah. It's just, he's not comfortable yet. I don't know why you put him in such a big spotlight right off the bat. Let him build, let him work. You know what I'm saying? You sit there, you take this guy, and you're like, all right, here, we're going to dump you in with Miz. All right, Miz, go ahead and carry him. And Miz is like, what the shit? I got to carry
too
this
early.
guy too?
Jason Jordan needs a little bit.
Yeah.
He needed one more feud before he got to the Miz.
Yes.
I think it's too early.
Yes.
No doubt about it. But
They're going to put the belt on him at SummerSlam. Watch. Just wait, watch.
One thing that I do like, though, is that they did tease a little bit about the whole backstory with Lesnar potentially going back to the UFC after John Jones called him out.
It was pretty nice.
It was pretty nice. I don't see it happening because I think Lesnar is suspended because he definitely used some performance-enhancing drugs, and now the UFC is under USADA, so there's going to be an issue with that, but I like the fact that they played it up. It adds a little bit more intrigue to the SummerSlam match that if he does lose, he could be going away. But in the end, he's coming back because the dollar signs are going to be great. He's just going to go back and forth, whoever pays him the most, and you know that. But the thing that came across the wire on Wednesday is John Jones might be willing to step in a WWE ring at the same time.
I was going to bring that up.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
He's interested in coming to WWE.
Listen, and it's funny that they're doing it for the check, but they're still doing it. I'd love to see John Jones at WrestleMania. That'd be sweet as hell. That'd be sweet as hell. John Jones, maybe you have a tag, John Jones and Ronda Rousey get in there.
Did you see any of the highlights from Slammiversary with TNA Impact or GFW Impact, whatever they're going by now? D'Angelo Williams.
Oh, yeah.
The running back.
Yeah, I saw that.
Former Carolina Panther,
almost broke his neck.
Yeah, Pittsburgh Steeler. But the thing was, he was super fluid in the ring. He's like so athletic that he sat there, did some real light training, got real brushed up on what goes on in the ring, and he was able to sit there, go out there, and have a really good match. Yes, he had that one botched spot where he overshot the table and he landed on his face. But other than that, he wrestled really well. For a first-time guy in a high-profile match with guys who are on a level that is infinitely higher than him, he held his own and he looked good. You know what I'm saying? So it was one of those things where you thought for sure that Moose was going to sit there and have to do all the heavy lifting, and then D'Angelo Williams would just kind of come in and do the cover. But no, he actually went out there, did some work, bounced off the ropes, threw some blows, took some punishment. It was a really good match. So if John Jones can come into WWE, do something similar, and he's got a name with UFC, oh, dude, he could be great. Even if he's just kind of like a brawling star, that's fine. You don't need to be a high flyer. You can come in, you can brawl, you can grapple. You'd be able to pick a couple guys up, slam them around. I mean, shoot, Lesnar only has 3 damn moves. He's awful. I can't stand Lesnar. If you got one more move than Lesnar, hey, you're A1 in my book. You know what I'm saying? Lesnar's making $9.5 million a year to show up at 20 different events every single year. John Jones can come in and get $5 million and show up at 13. It'll be okay.
No doubt about it. Raw was a tough watch all the way
Dumpster
around.
fire.
It didn't move anything towards SummerSlam that I thought was relevant.
Well, yes and no, okay? So this is relevant, I think. So 2/3 of the Shield, Dean Ambrose and Seth Rollins, all right? They're going to take on Sheamus and Cesaro for the tag belts at SummerSlam. I'm calling it right now, okay? So be prepared for that. Be prepared for your Shield reunion. You get ready for all of this that will be coming down the pipe.
Now, you flipped the page, and SmackDown was pretty good. I mean, you moved along storylines. It flowed really well. 2 great matchups. I am starting to get a little tired of AJ Styles and Kevin Owens, but it's a prolonged feud. They're going to probably cap it off with hopefully AJ Styles winning at SummerSlam. He deserves it. Shane O'Mac is going to be the ref, so I think that's going to be probably one of the great matches on there. Hopefully.
The only thing that bothered me with the AJ Styles Kevin Owens match was you could tell that they were setting up for the ref bump. Mm-hmm. Like the ref was getting himself in position, and you could see like, okay, well, what about here? What about here? And like he would get like real close in on the action, like more than usual. Like the refs are usually kind of around the action, but they're not going to get hit with a kick or a punch. He set himself up like directly in the line of fire to take that, and you've seen what was coming a mile away, which kind of pissed me off because it was a really good match. Other than that, the ref got in the middle of it and got the ref bump, and then it that bothered me just a little bit. I'm interested that Shane's going to be the ref. I wonder what's going to happen here, because there's been talk that Kevin Owens may feud with Shane. Shane was supposed to have a SummerSlam match. This obviously is it now. He's going to be the ref for the AJ Styles Kevin Owens match. But does he count 1, 2, 3 for AJ to win and retain? And then does Kevin Owens go berserk and fight Shane? And then would that set up for the next big pay-per-view, or would that set up for Mania? Because Mania is a long way away then. Mania is 6 months away at that point. So that's way too long of a build. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what happens. I don't know how that's going to work out. It's going to be interesting. Cena versus Nakamura.
Great match.
Let's move into that, because that was outstanding.
Great match, the right winner. I thought all around it was decent. I like the fact that you introduced Baron Corbin back into the mix, and John Cena got to destroy him. And again, like I told you, John Cena right now is putting guys over, and what a way to put over Nakamura by having him walk back in the ring, give him the handshake, and keep it moving, baby. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what John Cena is supposed to do at this point in time.
At this point in his career.
Is put guys over, and that's what he's doing.
I totally thought going into it Cena was going to win. I did. When Nakamura was able to get himself out of the FU and then work his way around, and then he did the Kinshasa, I was like screaming. I was like, Kinshasa! Kinshasa! I was screaming, running around the house. I couldn't believe that he sat there and he beat Cena. You know what I'm saying? Just because they have built Cena to be this monster, and everybody talks about how he doesn't put guys over. He does put guys over, but he only puts over a select few. You know what I'm saying? He's not going to just go lay down for any old body. And I think that's a good way to do business. I think that there is... I love John Cena, all right? So I don't want this to get taken the wrong way. I love John Cena. He's one of my favorites, all right? Whenever his music comes out, I jump up out of my seat on the couch, and I walk around yelling at everybody, you can't see me. WrestleMania, I sat there, or no, Royal Rumble, I picked my wife up, and I did the FU to her, and it's what it is, right? I love him. I think at this point in his career, he understands where he's at. He understands that he's on his way out. I think he knows that if and when he wants a belt, he just has to go to Vince and say, Vince, give me a belt. I want the belt. And Vince will give it to him. I think he's got that pull. He's got that ability to talk to Vince. He realizes that his days are numbered. He's got to start putting more guys over. He's got to sit there. He's got to start to take a step back. He just got locked up for the Transformers Bumblebee movie. So he's going to be moving on to go do more movies than he already is. So he realized that he has to leave. So by him kind of slowly working his way in and out, it's almost like a dance now where he's in 1 week, he's out the next week. He's in 1 week, he's out the next week. All right, while I'm here, how can I do the most good? And he puts over a guy like Nakamura. And I think he only puts over select few guys because not everybody deserves to be put over. And he realizes that. And the one thing I don't like is that he's the one deciding who he wants to put over. Do you know what I'm saying? That's the feeling I get. I don't necessarily think that you, John Cena, have the right to sit there and decide who you want to put over. You know, you got to do what's best for business, and sometimes what's best for business might not be what you want to do. That's just where my concern is with it.
Okay, so you're watching Glow on Netflix. A lot of people are talking about it. I haven't had a chance to watch.
I'm done with Glow.
You're done with it?
I'm done with it. I watched it in 2 days.
Okay, so tell me about it, because I obviously haven't had a chance to binge watch anything. Here and there, I watch the network. It's something weird happened to me on the network real quick when I watched it, and I put it on our Twitter page at Detroit Podcast. I went to watch Bring It to the Table, a great show that just kind of brings it from the behind the scenes angle. So I go to push it, and soon after it aired, it was like maybe half hour after it originally aired. It's right there. I click it. All of a sudden, a WCW documentary kept popping up, and I'm like, wait a minute, why is Ted Turner talking on my screen? I rewound it again. I went back to the home screen, pushed the button again. There's Ted Turner talking. I'm like, okay, I'm going to tape this and show everybody this is my life. I'm like, how the hell? I want to watch Bring It to the Table. I pushed it again. I hit resume, and I hit watch from beginning on the network, and 3 times it went to Ted Turner. And finally, after posting it on our Twitter page, I went back. I'm like, okay, I'm going to give it one more shot. I pushed it, and it popped up. So Bring It to the Table was cool, but it was interesting. I'm like, this is what I go through. I'm like, why is this happening? But you liked the show Glow. Tell me about it as if I've never heard of it, because I don't know too much about it. Is it scripted? Is it based on the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling in the past?
Yes.
Back in the day?
So it is based off of the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. It's on Netflix.
That was great. I used to watch that back in the day.
So it's basically every episode's roughly 30 to 35 minutes, all right? And it follows, there's your main actress, and then there's a co-main actress, and it basically follows these, I want to say 12 different women and a couple different guys around as they sit there and they basically try to get this upstart promotion, this upstart television show called Glow off the ground. Now, these ladies have no formal wrestling training, so it's about their bumps and the bruises along the way. It's funny. The main actress is so awkwardly uncomfortable. I found myself watching the show turning sideways on my couch and putting my legs up on the couch, like kind of like shielding my balls, just because I felt so uncomfortable for her. Like, she made me physically uncomfortable because just some of the things she would say, some of the things she would do, it was outstanding. The match inside the ring was really good. There were a couple different wrestlers in there. Tyrus was in there. Johnny Nitro, you'll remember him from WWE. He's now on Lucha Underground as Johnny Morrison. Carlito was in there with his apple. A couple other wrestlers were in there. Christopher Daniels was in there. Kazarian was in there. Alex Riley was in there, looking like a straight hunk, just man meat, looking good. And some of the ladies are really cute. Some ladies not so cute. All of them, it's really funny. They script it in such a way where you're always laughing. You know what I'm saying? Like, 5 minutes will go by and you'll just sit there and you'll start laughing because they'll say something funny or they'll do something funny. You know what I'm saying? It was incredibly well done. It was outstanding. Watch it, enjoy it. I think it's only like 10 or 11 episodes, man. I don't want to ruin it for you,
but it's good to watch.
It's so good. It is so good. And I understand that they took some creative liberties with a lot of it, but it is so very good. Also, if you're a dude, there's some nice boob action in there. If you're from the 80s, you're going to watch this and you're going to remember certain things like panties that are like all the way up to their nipples and the high-waisted jeans, because this takes place in the 80s, so it's good, man. It is funny. It'll make you laugh. I can't wait. Hopefully they do a second season. Like I said, I watched it in 2 days, dude. I flew right through it. I finished Iron Fist. I looked at the wife. I said, hey, you want to watch Glow? And she was like, what's Glow? And I was like, it's about wrestling. It's like girls wrestling. She was like, yeah, sure, whatever. She loved it, dude. Like, my wife loved it. She was like, yeah, let's watch another one. I was like, we got to go to bed. She's like, no, let's watch another one. Dude, we sat there, got through like 6 episodes the very first night. So it's great. Check it out. It's fun. Like I said, it takes place in the 80s. It's about the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. It's about getting this upstart foundation wrestling program up on its feet and running. And the whole goal was to get to the very first taping, to be able to sit there and
season 2 will be coming. You know,
it has to, dude. It's been so well received. You know, some of the old wrestling heads like Jim Cornette doesn't really care for it, just because anything that he feels puts the wrestling industry in a perceived bad light, he doesn't like, or if it's not as real as it probably should be, or if it breaks kayfabe, he's not a huge fan of it. But dude, it's great because you kind of see, again, it takes you behind the scenes. So of course Jim Cornette wouldn't like it, but it's outstanding, dude. I loved it. I thought it was great.
Before we get out of here, hit me with some news and notes.
Sure thing. So this weekend they released a presser. Hell in the Cell will be at Little Caesars Arena on October 8th, 2017. Possibly going to get tickets to go to that. I think you're probably going to get tickets to go to that too.
I'm excited. I think so.
Expect a superstar shakeup after SummerSlam. This is going to be a little bit different than how they've done it before, where they're trading guys across brands. Now guys can sit there and move up and down to NXT. And the point of doing this is for superstars that they're not doing anything with. It's a way to sit there and get them reacclimated with the fan base, as well as if you need some more training, you can go back down to NXT and it's not looked at as a demotion. Also, it helps NXT in their numbers. So expect somebody like maybe Emma. We've already talked about Nia Jax should go down. A couple guys on the main roster who could probably go down and use some work. So don't be surprised if you see guys like an Apollo Crews go back down to NXT and sit there and try to get brushed up and kind of iron out some of their skills. And don't be surprised to see some of the guys from NXT come on up. I think at some point Bobby Roode's got to come up. He's a freaking stud. And then you've already mentioned John Jones being interested in coming to WWE someday. So he was on, I believe, Jim Ross's podcast, and that's where that information is coming from. So yeah, should be good, man. I enjoy the wrestling one, man. I know Dave wasn't a huge fan of wrestling. He wasn't a huge fan of men wrestling and grown men talking about other grown men wrestling around in tights. But
no, I think
whatever, dude. It's good.
I think the way you've done is great. Make it at the very end so people get their content for Detroit sports, and those that are and the wrestling fans can catch it in the final segment. Great podcast, sir. I think that your boy would have been honored to have been mentioned in this very fine podcast, and we just hope that one day we get a chance, and if you are religious, if you are of the religious variety, that we get a chance to reconnect on a different level. For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Thank you so much for downloading. We can't thank you guys enough for what you've done and for what your support and following us and messaging us, what it's done for our network and what we've been able to do. Thank you so much.
Love you, Dave.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I hear voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.